Rad Talk has been excited to meet people like you who have a lot of great stories to share, but also a wealth of experience to explore with our listeners and our audience. And so I think it's great to have this conversation. I've been talking to different people about why I'm doing this, and the idea really behind it is we need to know each other. We need to know who is around. We need to know what people are working on so that we can understand how we all come together.
But so I've, my interest in Harrisonburg and Harrisonburg politics really is one, that this is where I grew up. My family is my father grew up here as well, and I've seen the city grow and love the city just as a place I call home. I moved away for a while, but in coming back, I came back just because I'd seen a city that had grown so much, not only in population numbers, but in diversity.
And so, is there any particular moment or any particular experience of yours that informed what you're doing right now? Being in Africa, in South Africa, in a different context, maybe different political system. And you've grown up in Harrisonburg, so, and you said your father grew up here as well. So I wonder what you've seen so far growing up and now, what are the differences? How is Harrisonburg changed?
Yeah, sure.
All right, welcome to Rad Talk. Today is another episode of our Harrisonburg Series where we continue to meet with our community leaders to discuss our city, the leadership in our community, but also different projects that are going around the city of Harrisonburg. And I have the esteemed privilege to welcome on our studio today Councilman Dany Fleming, who is here today and wants to discuss with us different aspects of his life, his leadership, but also his involvement in the community. Welcome on the show.
Well, thank you, Rodrigo. Appreciate it, and excited to be on Rad Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rad Talk has been excited to meet people like you who have a lot of great stories to share, but also a wealth of experience to explore with our listeners and our audience. And so I think it's great to have this conversation. I've been talking to different people about why I'm doing this, and the idea really behind it is we need to know each other. We need to know who is around. We need to know what people are working on so that we can understand how we all come together and build a strong community together. And so that's what is behind the idea of Rad Talk. And I think the first thing that I want to know is why city politics?
That's a great question to start off with, right? Well, one, I think, this is really important because I think the distance between local leaders and residents is the shortest distance in any political system we have, right? So I'm just a resident here in Harrisonburg who now sits on city council, which is an option for all residents of Harrisonburg to do. And so, we're so very close. And so I think it's important that we listen and talk with each other. But so I've, my interest in Harrisonburg and Harrisonburg politics really is one, that this is where I grew up. My family is my father grew up here as well, and I've seen the city grow and love the city just as a place I call home. I moved away for a while, but in coming back, I came back just because I'd seen a city that had grown so much, not only in population numbers, but in diversity, and become a place that I felt that this is a place that I can go live and enjoy being here, and I really love what our city is becoming, and even love more what our city can become, right? What we can aspire to, and we're a working city. The city works pretty well for many people. For others, it still needs, it's a work in progress, needs to get better. But I think this city represents one of the best opportunities to have a whole healthy community that services, really our entire population, not really, our diverse population. So I'm excited to be a part of that. And it's going to take, all of us working and listening to each other to make that happen. So,
Yeah, and you've shared with me before that you lived in South Africa for a while and you worked closely with the different system when the country was changing from the apartheid regime to a more what we can call democratic system. And so, is there any particular moment or any particular experience of yours that informed what you're doing right now? Being in Africa, in South Africa, in a different context, maybe different political system.
yeah, that's a great question. And, for me, growing up in Harrisonburg, and leaving here, I went to Chicago. So that's where I went, which again was a new world of politics and community, which was really exciting for me. And then going to South Africa for several years, kind of right before the transition, before Mandela was released and just after. In the transition, and being in a country that was stepping into democracy for the first time, sitting in for myself, sitting in a constitutional convention where they were drawing up the Constitution for a country that had been divided and wasn't accessible to 80% of the population. Was really astounding, was really inspiring to be a part of. And I think for anyone who has done that type of work, you also realize that the perspective and the learning that takes place in you often far outweighs what you're contributing and what you're bringing into that community. So, it was really inspiring. It was really inspiring in South Africa in particular, to see the sense of reconciliation that permeated the population there that had been denied access to resources, to freedom, and to see this sense of reconciliation that generally, universally, they had, which was almost inconceivable, considering the violence and the oppression that happened there.
And the frustration.
Yes. Yeah. And so that was really humbling as well, to see that people were so welcoming and gracious in the midst of what they were experiencing. And, they were saying to their apartheid government, we're here to work with you. So it was really, from that point of view, it was an amazing learning experience for me.
Yeah, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is really an example of what peace building or conflict transformation would look like, where we go from conflict to mutual beneficial relationships. And so Bishop Desmond Tutu was a very big player in that, unfolding. And I think with the violence in the world, of course, we need to get to a point where people start looking at people differently as human beings that could bring something to the table. No, we may have many things in common that we can work together and contribute as much as we can as a community. And you've grown up in Harrisonburg, so and you said your father grew up here as well. So I wonder what you've seen so far growing up, and now what are the differences? How has Harrisonburg changed?
Yeah, sure.
Over the years.
Yeah, so it's actually with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. One of my colleagues in South Africa, one named Amy Beale, just when I left, she actually was pretty brutally murdered. And so doing some of the work we were doing there, and her family, her parents, went and met with Bishop Tutu, and were able to engage in a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So the folks who had committed that murder, it was a pretty brutal murder, and it was very for us that knew her, it was very traumatizing.
Yeah.
But through that process, her parents came to in essence become friends with the folks who committed that atrocity, and work through a process of trying to understand what had happened and then how to make meaning of what happened, and really, again, ways that are hard to understand, that you can get to that point, right?
Yeah.
So for me, growing up in Harrisonburg was certainly much smaller.
Yeah.
than it is now, and much less international during that time. Um, when I started school here, it was some of the first years that we had integrated elementary schools or integrated schools. So I believe the high school integrated here in about 1968, kind of right around that area time. And so it was interesting because, when I started in kindergarten, my class was an integrated class, so I didn't know different.
Yeah.
But there were many folks who were just a little bit older than me that did know different and who were first experiencing, integrated schools. And so, it's a relatively small community.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I played sports. And so that's one of the ways I think in Harrisonburg, many folks interacted across demographics, right? Economics and racial demographics in the city. It was, again, playing basketball, for example, the folks I played with were across all sorts of demographics and really allowed us to get to know each other. I think one of the things I've always appreciated about Harrisonburg is, especially with our elementary schools, is that they're fairly evenly distributed across all sorts of different demographics. And that's really important, I think, for us, that kids in particular understand that their classmates or their friends across whatever potential divides there might be. So, I grew up at a time when Harrisonburg, it was integrating. Certainly, lots of resistance. And I think many of my classmates, as I saw going through school, especially my Black classmates, I saw that you were really getting tracked in different ways. Mm-hmm. You weren't given the same opportunities often on whatever biases existed at that time, on kind of history of folks in our system. Yeah. That had a big impact on me, especially when I graduated. One of the folks that was really influential to me was Elon Rhodes, and he was a good friend of my father's. Mm-hmm. And he was a barber in town as well as being on city council and Harrisonburg's first Black city council member. Wow. And every month I would be in his barber shop with him and my father, and it would just be my father and him talking local politics. Oh. And I would be there and listen to that. And I don't think I realized what was going on at that time. I was much younger. But as I reflect on it, as I got older, I realized that, they were bridge building, constantly working on that. And so it had a big impact on me. And so when I left Harrisonburg, I always did have an idea that I wanted to come back and be a part of changing this community to be healthy and whole in ways we haven't been and that we still are aspiring to be. Yeah. And I think a lot of the work I did in Chicago in particular, which was a very organized committee in justice and social justice, is very is a active, vibrant part of what happens in that community. So I learned a lot. I had a lot of mentoring that I was able to have there. And so for me, coming back here to Harrisonburg was kind of a natural next step. How can I be part of a community and help us grow in ways that, again, would be more whole and healthy.
Awesome. And Harrisonburg growing, being a little bit different, what do you think become the strength of the growing? Because right now, I don't know what it was when you were growing up, but right now we're talking about over 55,000, residents, 77 languages spoken in high schools. And what? From my last research, I think we have about 12% of the population that are foreign born in the Harrisonburg city. So with all of that, how do you think that is a strength? Is there anything that can be capitalized? How do you foresee that as an opportunity?
Yeah, well, we certainly know, for me, when I was, certainly young, kind of my, elementary school days, Harrisonburg, probably 10, 15,000 people, right? So we've grown pretty significantly. It is interesting sometimes when I run into folks, older folks, and I guess I'm kind of in that category now, right? And the phrase that always rubs me, when they talk about the good old days.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they were only good for some, right? That perception of the good old days, is not an accurate perception. It's a subjective perception based on what you were experiencing going through at that point. But I think for Harrisonburg, when we first started becoming a much more diverse city, and I think a lot of that happened in late 70s and 80s. And much of it is related to the poultry industry. And we've always been a generally fairly economically sound community. I think we haven't had we weren't toxic in some of the relations that many places have. I think some of that is related to the Mennonite and Brethren ethos and heritage we have here. But when we started becoming more diverse, and especially we had made through Central America and moved up here, the economic growth and strength of Harrisonburg in that time kind of went up a curve like this, which matched exactly the curve that our diversity and population was. Right? That's no accident. That we are the healthy financial city we are, and we need to do a lot of work to make it healthy across all of our demographics. But the fact that we are as healthy as we are is directly correlated to our growth internationally. And then, it's interesting, and we were talking about this earlier, for the folks who are able to make it here internationally, especially if you're someone who's an asylum seeker, and the 1% of folks who can get through that system, and you realize that the folks, that 1% who can make it through that system have extraordinary problem-solving and resilient skills to make it through. And then they end up in our city. And if you think of it collectively, you realize that we are a city, an international city, and the international part of us are amazing, problem-solving, resilient folks. And I often think of us as a problem-solving city. But it is as much to do with our foreign-born population being here and bringing those skills and talents to us, right? And if we can all think of it in those terms, then we can realize, wow, the potential that we can get to is way beyond what we can think about, from our kind of former limited ways of thinking about that. So it's really an exciting opportunity to think, and I think Harrisonburg is a city. I always think of us as we have such an immense and amazing opportunity to be the vision and aspiration of a working, diverse community that often we kind of think of. We think of aspiration. I think this is the place that can get there.
And I always say that immigrants, refugees, people that have been through a lot to be able to make it to the US or to any country in the world and start rebuilding their lives have a lot of resilient skills and strength. And you can see it even in the workplaces where they're jumping to, looking for jobs instead of providing for their families and trying to contribute as much as possible in the community. And on top of all of that, they still probably have family members that are still abroad that are supporting, that are looking after them to meet some of their needs. And so that's an interesting dynamic to have in the city, where not only that brings a lot of languages, that brings a lot of diverse perspectives into many things that we can think about, as you said, problem solvers. They can think about issues that we have in the community. They can provide insights from their own perspective and experience living abroad and growing up in different contexts, and being able to kind of bring that to the table as a contribution is also amazing.
Yeah.
And so I reflect on that a lot because I think we have a wealth of experience in our community that we can capitalize on and improve many things that we're working. But you guys are the the city council members. You look at the city, and what do you think? Or this way, what are the projects that are in the city right now that you think are very important that the city is working on or is trying to implement or is implementing or has implemented in the last couple of years that are important you can mention to our community?
Yeah. Well, we've got this one group called Welcoming Harrisonburg. I think you know it, don't you?
Yeah, I'm one of the members of Welcoming Harrisonburg Council.
Yeah.
It's amazing to be part of that group.
Yeah. And so, the summit that you helped, bring together last week, I think is a really important step in bringing folks to the table, one, to realize that, wow, this is their city, right? And the opportunity to step into leadership and decision-making and into problem-solving our community is not only available to you, but we need you.
Yeah.
We can't know and understand where we need to resolve issues without the folks who can provide that firsthand experience and provide those insights. And so I'm excited to see what the follow-up is from the summit, and see if we can build next steps.
Yeah.
So that our leadership and decision making broadens and diversifies. And so I think that's I'm really excited to see that, and thank you.
Yeah,
for that work,
and thank you for being there. Yeah, thankful you and other council members that joined that event. It was important, meaningful, and many leaders feel like they live in a community that is welcoming, and so having these kind of events in the community, bringing people to the same table and discussing issues and challenges and opportunities that we have is one of the best first steps taken in a very diverse city like Harrisonburg.
Yeah.
So it was great to have that event, and hopefully the Immigrant Leadership Summit will be an annual event where we bring people to the table and discuss, from policymakers to impacted community members to immigrants to community leaders to businesses and everybody at the table, and see what we can do to continue improving our community.
Yeah,
that's kind of the idea behind it. Which that's what we called the theme was, global perspective, local belongings. How to bring those global perspectives to the local context, and how do those improve the community.
Yeah. And, for what's traditionally been kind of a small rural community, and I think Harrisonburg has been stepping into the understanding of we're better when we incorporate perspectives.
Yeah.
There are new perspectives and different perspectives in our community. Holding on to, your the ideas that might just be from your upbringing or what limits you.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and I think Harrisonburg has grown in that way. We have ways we can go further there. So, so I think, the summit, I'm really excited to see what comes out of that in the next steps. I think the other things that we do here in Harrisonburg that are really important, one is our school system, our education system.
Yeah.
And I know when folks come here internationally, I think this is a great place for them to come for their kids to be here, because I know our school system is able to bring in students, especially if they have language skills they have to learn, English language skills to learn. That our system is really as good as it gets in helping bring those students in and mainstream them, get them right into the core classes they need, so they can continue on that educational path. One of the things we know is that when a student walks out of the doors of Harrisonburg High School, in the future Harrisonburg and Rocktown High School, that there's really a high probability that if they do go to college, many of them will come back, but most of them will return to this area.
Yeah.
So I think that there was a census study that was done, and it's close to 70%.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I was really stunned to see that number. It's a census number.
Yeah,
it was a point in time that represented. But if it's some variance of that, what it means is that what we invest into our school system, is going to be the what we reap at the end. Our future leaders, our future business leaders, our future community leaders, the folks who are driving kind of the culture in our city, are walking out of the doors of our schools. And so that's our investment, and that's the one of the most important things we do. The other thing that I'm kind of interested and excited about, on economic development. So financial stability, financial security, financial empowerment is something that some in the city have, many don't. We're a city of kind of modest means and income generally. And a lot of people are struggling. So I think with regards to economic development, kind of two things for us to step into. One, our growth and our strength on economic development really rests within our small business community. We have some large employers in Harrisonburg, but the place we have the most opportunity to grow and build stability for Harrisonburg families is within our small business community. Many of those are immigrant-led, immigrant-founded businesses. So finding ways to step into and offer that type of support. We also have our Black and Brown owned business network that was started through City Council and to address folks who've been kind of denied access often to the resources and the capital to build business. So I think that's a really important part for us to step into. If you're a business of 3 or 4 people, can we help you become 10 to 20? If you're a business of 10 to 20 people locally here, can you become 50 to 100? And those are the folks then that contribute back to our community. And the other part of economic development I think is really important is for us to think of economic development not just in terms of business, but of individuals. Individual economic and financial security. So for folks who are really struggling, what are the things we can do as a city that empowers people's personal financial mobility, able to move up? And I think if we think in those terms, how to help individuals become stable, find ways to create financial security that they may not have thought they had before. And so that's something I want us to explore as a city more. And then there are a number of ways the cities can do that. There are a number of emerging practices around the country I think are potential for us to step into.
Wow, that's exciting. I think anything that could improve our community is what is needed, right? Like in any way, economically, socially, I always say language accessibility for our international folks that are here that do not fluently speak English. And so these many languages that we have. So those are the things also that could be very important for people in our community. And how to do that. I think we've started conversation with Mayor of Harrisonburg about how we can do some of these things, improving accessibility in terms of language, in terms of resources as much as possible, and how those are communicated with the overall community, and so that everybody understands what's going on, what's out there in the community, and how they can access that in their own language could be also another potential avenue to look at that. I've been talking to other organizations locally that think that, at some point we need to think about what is that central place where we can all meet, where people can come and meet and find resources in the city of Harrisonburg. And so that is also another discussion that I think is still at the table. And so it's great to hear your perspective, because with Raw Talk we'll be hearing other perspective from immigrant leaders, from businesses, from local leaders in different spaces, and see really what formed this beautiful city of Harrisonburg, where everybody has a contribution that makes it perfect. And so, yeah, that's why we wanted to have this conversation. Anything else you want to say to our viewers or audience watching that you didn't get a chance to discuss?
Well, everybody stay tuned to whatever next episodes of Raw Talk are coming up. So pay attention and listen. So yeah, I think, one of the things that we need to do, one of the things that, leaders need to do, but often isn't part of the toolbox, is listening.
Yeah.
And understanding.
Yeah.
That if we're not listening and we're not understanding what people are saying their needs are, then we're making a guess and we're missing.
Yeah. That's right.
Without a doubt. So I think that's really important of how we learn to listen and then incorporate that into our problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we have a problem solving community. Those are the folks who can kind of help us create those possibilities and ideas. And frankly, I have no doubt that Harrisonburg can be a place where new ways of doing this can generate, right? New understandings how to do this. I think where that the potential here is that great that we can step into ways of doing things that we haven't really discovered and other books haven't discovered yet. So that's exciting. That motivates me.
Yeah.
And it gets me excited. And without doing that, I mean, I think the fact is we will never be fully whole and healthy.
Yeah.
If our goal is to be a whole, healthy community, right?
Yeah.
I think everyone's goal is for that. But, it's certainly mine.
Yeah.
It will be, making sure that everyone feels whole and healthy and is contributing and able to get their voice and we're able to listen.
Yeah.
Very soon.
All right. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation today. We learned more about you that we didn't know. And we also learned a lot about what your aspirations are for the city of Harrisonburg, what you think is working, what you think we need to continue working on. And that has been one of the main goals of having this conversation in the city, so that we can all co-design a better community for all here in our city.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is Rod, and we've had the privilege to talk to Councilman Dany Fleming, where we discuss many, community issues, but also projects and aspirations. And thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned on Rod Talk. We have many episodes coming every other week. And so please remember to share, like, and subscribe to Roderick Makelele on all social media platforms. And let us know if you have any questions for our guests or if you want us to bring someone on the studio, and we're happy to fulfill those requests. Thank you so much and be blessed.